The 2023 NBA MVP race as of right now has been very, very close. Now, there's a lot of people that have been in the discussion, like Jason Tatum, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the very early goings, Giannis Antetokounmpo, LeBron James, Steph Curry. All these players have all been in conversation, but let's be honest, right now it is a two-horse race, and those two horses are Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. And there's a lot of debate going on whether who deserves the MVP, who deserves it better. Should Jokic get a third one in a row? Does Joel Embiid deserve his first one? And both sides do have very, very valid points for both sides. And I'm going to be breaking down a few things in this video. First, I'll be going through the actual facts of both players, what makes them good, what they do well, and what they don't do so good, and like their strengths and weaknesses of the team. And then I'll be getting to my personal opinion on the players as well. So I'll be getting to all that in this video. If you do like the video, hit the like button and subscribe button. I mean the absolute word to me. And without further ado, without running on too much, let's get right into this video. First thing I really want to get into for this video is going to be the facts between both of these players. And what I mean by that is just really diving into just the statistics right now that everyone can see, and at least the statistics in the major categories. I'm not going to be a nerd and dive into all the advanced stats. That's for the geeks to do, okay? I don't care about that. We're just going to get into the basic stats that everybody know, points per game, things like that. So the first player we're going to get into is going to be the Joker himself, and Nikola Jokic is right now averaging 24.5 points per game, 11.8 rebounds per game, on 10 assists per game, on 62% shooting from the field, 41% shooting from the three-point line, and 81% shooting from the free throw line as well, getting a 1.2 steals per game as well. So he is really putting up one of the best statistical seasons ever from a center perspective, as there has never been another center to ever average a triple-double, and assuming he keeps the same pace for the latter half of this season, he is going to finish this year averaging a triple-double, and that, like I said, never has been done by a center or a big man. I think the only other two players that ever do it are Russell Westbrook and Oscar Robertson. So he is going to be joining elite company there, and be the first center to ever do it as well is another very big feat. And then for Joel Embiid's side of things, he is averaging 33 points per game, 1.6 blocks per game, 1 steal per game, 4 assists per game, 10 rebounds per game, on 36% shooting from the three-point line, 53% shooting from the field goal, and 85% shooting from the free throw line. Really, Embiid's stats are just as impressive as well. I mean, anyone that can average over 30 points per game is extremely impressive. He's a very solid rim protector. He's a great rebounder, and although his assist numbers aren't down, he's still doing it at an extremely efficient rate. I mean, 36% from the three is good for any position, especially a center, and 53% from the field is outstanding, and almost 85% from the free throw line as well. You can't ask for much better than that, and he is not far off from 50, 40, 90 averages, which is very, very possible for Embiid, and it's equally as impressive for a center to do, in really any position to do. So if you look at them both just from a statistical standpoint, you can see why these are both your MVP candidates. On one hand, you have an all-around beast of a guy, Nikola Jokic, who can do basically everything on the offensive end, or you can have Joel Embiid, who is the more dominant of the two and is a very, very good rim protector, better athlete, stronger, and can do more of the physical things that Nikola Jokic cannot do due to how they are built. So to put these stats in action and break them down even farther, let's go into how they apply to actually both sides of basketball for both of these players. The first side that we're going to talk about is going to be the offensive side, and if you really look at the stats, one would probably think Joel Embiid is the better offensive player. He averages 9 more points per game, and he's extremely efficient while doing it. And yes, that would be true, but the efficiency actually, despite Embiid being an extremely efficient player when it comes to scoring the ball, and yes, he averages 30 plus points per game, Nikola Jokic is actually more efficient at 62% from the field, which is extremely, extremely important, but he's also a 41% shooter from the three-point line, and that is significantly better than Joel Embiid at 36% from the three-point line. So although he is averaging less points, his efficiencies are way higher. Now, you could argue it's because Jokic is taking less shots, so therefore he isn't needing, his percentages are able to stay higher than Embiid, who takes more shots, which would be a solid argument. But you could also argue Nikola Jokic is averaging less points per game because he is so much better of a playmaker than Joel Embiid. Because unlike Embiid, who has to look to score every single time he has the ball to really make an impact on the offensive end, Nikola Jokic does not have to score at all to make a huge impact on the offensive side of the ball. Nikola Jokic is one of the best passers in the league, period. And when it comes to a big man perspective, he is far and away the best big man passer in the entire NBA. His court vision is next to none, and when you put on top of that he's an extremely efficient scorer from everywhere on the basketball court, and he can also handle the ball pretty nicely as well because he's very good at using his body, then the offensive gap no longer looks that big, and the points per game can be a little deceptive. So if I had to judge on an all-around offensive player, I would probably say Nikola Jokic is the better offensive player because he's more efficient when he does score, he doesn't rely on the free throw line as much, and he's just a better overall player because he's a much better playmaker for his teammates. So if I had to give one of them an offensive edge, I would have to give it to Nikola Jokic. Now moving over to the defensive side of the ball, if you look at these two players, I mean, it would be fairly hard pressed to argue that Nikola Jokic is the better defender, because in my opinion, Jokic just is not the better defender. He is actually at times a very bad defender because of how slow he is. Now, he's not always the guy getting picked on, like he can hold his own, but Joel Embiid just has all the tools in his repertoire to be a great defender. He's already a very solid rim protector. He's always going to be an intimidating presence, even if he's not blocking your shot. Like, no one wants to take on Joel Embiid. He's strong enough and fast enough to stay in front of most players, no matter who they are, assuming they're not Kyrie Irving with a handle or something. But like the average player, Joel Embiid is more than good enough to stay in front of. Even if they're not a center or power forward, he can stay in front of some small forwards, some shooting guards. So I think Joel Embiid is definitely the more versatile defender. He has more tools to be good on defense, and overall, he is the better defender. Now, like I said, Nikola Jokic is no slouch on that end. He is just not built for defense, okay? He's chubby, slow, his feet are slow. He can't jump the highest. Like, he can block shots, but that's not far from actually what he is known for. So defensively, I'm definitely giving the edge to Joel Embiid. So now they are tied, 1 point to Nikola Jokic for offense and 1 point to Joel Embiid for defense. And now, what would the really tiebreaker be? And in my opinion, that tiebreaker is going to be who is actually more valuable to their team, because it's kind of in the name of the reward, most valuable player. Really determine who is the more valuable player, in my opinion, to their team, I'm going to do one of two things. The first thing I'm going to do is going to be breaking down each team's next best 3 players and kind of comparing them, and then after that, I'm going to be comparing their performances without them in the line. Like when Embiid or Nikola Jokic is out of the game, what's their record and how are they performing in those games? So the first team I'm going to break down is going to be the Philadelphia 76ers. And the Philadelphia 76ers, their next best player is James Harden, and I don't think I really have to tell you who James Harden is or tell you how good of a player James Harden is. He is a former MVP, a 10-time All-Star, 7-time All-NBA player, and he is currently averaging 22 points per game, 6 rebounds per game, on 10 assists per game. So he is still an extremely high-level player, extremely high, like at least an All-Star. You can debate a superstar. He's just kind of reinvented how he plays. He's no longer the guy giving you about 40 points every single night, or at least could do that every single night. But he is still an elite-level player in this league. Their next best player, not the next best player, but one of their next best players is Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is a guy who in the past has averaged 20 points per game multiple times. He's played at an all-star level multiple times. He's never made an all-star game, but he has been at that level. I mean, at least from a scoring perspective. And this year he is currently averaging 15 points per game. He's their guy. He's a 4th option for them, by the way. And being the 4th option, giving you 15 points per game is extremely valuable. And he is just one of the higher level role players in the NBA. And every team would love to have a guy like Tobias Harris. And then probably their 3rd option would be Tyrese Maxey, and Tyrese Maxey is one of the more underrated guards in the entire league. He's currently having the best year of his 3-year career, averaging 20 points per game this year, and has been one of the, like I said, most underrated one of the most underrated guards in the entire NBA. He's an extremely high-level player in score. He can just do a lot of things, and not a lot of people talk about him because of Embiid, because of James Harden, but he is an X factor on this team for sure. Due to this extremely high talent on this roster, it actually has made it to where even in games where Joel Embiid has missed, this team has not missed a beat. As this year in the games the 76ers have been without Joel Embiid, the 76ers have a record of 9-4 without Embiid this year, which is very impressive. To have a guy that's, like I said, top 2 in the MVP race right now, to still be able to perform at that high of a level really goes to show you how good this overall Philadelphia 76ers team actually is, and it is very built, and he has a very good supporting cast around him. But now moving on to the Denver Nuggets, you look at their next best player is Jamal Murray. Now, Jamal Murray is a very good player. He is definitely hands down their 2nd best player in my opinion, and although he's never made an All-Star game, I don't think there's an argument to be made. He has played at an All-Star level multiple times in his career. He easily could have had the argument to be an All-Star, and he's probably been a snub once or twice at this point in his career as well. So I think Jamal Murray is a very good guard and very underrated. He's one of the better offensive guys, and he's currently averaging 20 points per game, 4 assists per game, and 6 6 rebounds per game. So he is a very, very solid player, extremely good, and I just think for sure that he needs to be talked about more, but he hasn't made an all-star game, and he is, in my opinion, at least hands down their second best player. And then their third best player is going to be Michael Porter Jr. And now Michael Porter Jr., although his injury issues are an extremely big issue for this team, when he is healthy, is a very, very solid third option. He's an elite three-point shooter, one of the best in the entire league, and although he's never averaged 20 points per game in his entire career, he has came very, very close in the past. His biggest problem is really just being an injury-prone guy, but when he is on the court, he is still a very high-level role player and is definitely a player that any team would love to have. And then going into their last option, which is probably their fourth option on this team, is Aaron Gordon. And once again, Aaron Gordon is just one of those players, a very high-level role player, high-flying guy, going to bring the energy, can play defense a little bit, is a very good scorer for the power forward position, and is just overall a very, very solid player. Probably never going to make an all-star game, but is still one, like the tier right under a borderline all-star in my opinion. And in the 8 games that the Denver Nuggets have had to play this year without Nikola Jokic, they have a record of 3-5. And now this, although nowhere near as impressive as the Philadelphia 76ers 9-4, I would say it's a smaller sample size, and that, I mean, their team also isn't as deep. With their team not being as deep or talented, I would have to make the argument Nikola Jokic is more valuable to his team than Joel Embiid is to the 76ers. Because if you take Embiid off the 76ers and just add an average center, I think the 76ers are still at minimum a play-in team, and in my opinion, they're probably still a 6th to 5th seed in the Eastern Conference. But if you took Nikola Jokic off of this Denver Nuggets team, I don't know if they're going to be a play-in team. And if they're going to be a play-in team, they would be like a 10th seed. And I'm not sure that they would make the playoffs or make it out of that tournament. So if I had to make the argument of who was more valuable to their team, I would have to give it to Nikola Jokic. So in overall, that is now 2-1 in Nikola Jokic. And in my opinion, I think Nikola Jokic is deserving of his 3rd straight MVP. Now, this was nothing to take away from Joel Embiid. I think he's a great player. And I wouldn't be mad if they gave the MVP to Embiid for just to give him his first one. So Embiid doesn't, so Jokic doesn't get his 3rd one in a row, or if you really think he deserves it, I really can't fault you for that at all. Just in my opinion, I think Nikola Jokic deserves it. But unfortunately, guys, that's more for this video. So comment below, do you agree with me? Do you think that Jokic deserves his 3rd straight? Do you think Embiid should get one? I want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. If you leave a point, hit the like button and subscribe button in the apps. Run to me, and I hope you have a blessed day, because I had a blessed day, so you need to have a blessed day. All glory to God. See you in the next video. Goodbye. Boo. Blah.